I just want to remind you before it starts to always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. And I'd like to remind you that nothing in this video, nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast or read on ardensday.com constitutes medical advice of any kind. The supporting documents and social media for the podcast, this video, and the blog are also not to be considered as advice. Please read this disclaimer before starting to view this episode.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, what's your name?
My name is Shirley Bornstein, but actually, that's my third last name.
That's your third last name?
My first name when I was born is Shirley Blonstein. Then it was Shirley Murphis when I married Stanley Murphis. And then after he died, I married Herman Bornstein. So my first name and my present name are just a few letters apart.
Okay, sir.
And I understand from Sarah that you are in New Jersey.
I am, yes. I am.
It just so happened I was born in New Jersey.
Whereabouts?
In Bayonne.
Bayonne.
And then when I was 3 years old, we moved down south.
My wife's first professional boss is her favorite person she's ever worked for. His name was John, and he is from Bayonne, still lives there now. He absolutely loves it there. So, but when you say you were born in Bayonne, you mean in 1920?
20.
Wow. And so in 1923, your family left New Jersey and went to the South.
Right.
Wow. No kidding. Okay. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I hope you don't mind. Have you already celebrated your birthday, or is it coming up?
No, it was April 25th, last Saturday.
Congratulations. It's lovely. Tell people how old you are.
I'm 100.
Okay. Now, does everyone you meet ask you the secret to living to be 100 years old?
Not necessarily.
No, Shirley, I'm going to. Okay. So do you feel like you lived in a way that created longevity, or do you not think anything special about your life like that?
No, as a friend of mine who went past 100, the only different thing I did is I didn't die.
Well, keep doing it. You're doing great. You had another friend who lived past 100?
No, my family they really didn't live very long. My father died at 65, my mother at 72, my two sisters were in their 70s, and I don't know why I'm living so long, but I think it's because I so desperately want to see a cure for type 1 diabetes.
Yeah. How are you connected to type 1?
I have 2 grandchildren.
And they both have diabetes?
Type 1. I have a lot of grandchildren.
Oh.
And great-grandchildren. I have 24 great-grandchildren. But these 2 have type 1 diabetes.
Right. Are they both on? It's because you've had, I'm assuming, let me ask, you had 2 husbands. Were you married to both of them for a long enough time to have a family with each of them?
No.
No.
My first family was with Stanley Murphis, and we got married in 1945 during the war, and he died in 1979. And I had 3 children with him.
And you guys were married almost 35 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I remarried to Herman Bornstein, I have 3 stepchildren.
Okay. Wow.
So I really have 6 children altogether.
And so the grandchildren with the type 1 diabetes are from your first marriage?
Yes. And from his older, and my oldest son.
Okay. And so tell me a little bit about your grandkids. How old are they? Will we say their names on here, or do you keep that private?
No, what do you want to know?
Let's start with how old they are.
Oh, Bruce, my oldest child,
Mm-hmm.
is 72, and he's a pediatrician and in the front line on this virus right now. And he's married to a nurse who goes into the hospital every day, and they're the two I worry about the most.
Of course.
They had have 3 children, Gus and Sarah, who have the type 1 diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And then their youngest is named Stanley after his grandfather.
Okay. How
And
old?
he's really a hero. I have to mention him because when Gus needed a kidney and his failed due to diabetes, Stanley stepped up to the plate and gave him a kidney.
That's amazing. That is a very selfless thing. Have you ever thought about that? I have. Like, could you give an organ to someone if they asked for it? It's a big decision.
He made the decision.
Yeah.
When they were looking for a donor, he stepped up and said, "Test me." And he was a good match.
That's amazing. How old is Gus and Sarah and Stanley?
Right now, Gus was born in, let me see, I think about, so he's about 42 or 43.
In his 40s, okay.
Yeah. And Stanley was born in 81.
2001. So he's about 30.
Yeah, he's in his 30s.
Did your son Bruce have an oops baby, and was it Stanley?
No,
No, not an extra one at the end. I got you. Well,
they've been married for a number of years. Sarah was the oldest.
Oh, okay. Sarah's older. So Sarah is older than Gus.
Oh, yes.
Do they all live nearby with you in the South?
No, they live in Columbus, Ohio, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
How long have you been working to help raise awareness for type 1 diabetes?
Since 1985.
My goodness.
That's when I retired. I was working for Emory University Medical School with a very prominent cardiologist, Dr. Nanette Wenger. And then I retired in 1985 when I was 65 and went to work almost immediately with JDRF.
No kidding. Shirley, what did you do for 35 years?
The 35 years I've been working with type 1?
No, with the doctor.
JDRF.
Prior to that?
25 years I worked. I did research. I was a research coordinator on cardiac research.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you ever feel like you've had 4 lives?
Well, I've done a lot of different things.
Certainly have. I mean, you
I graduated from Temple University with a degree in medical technology.
Okay. I grew up just outside of Philadelphia. You came up here from Atlanta to go to school?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because they offered a degree in medical technology.
Was that uncommon for women or no? Were you like leading the way being a woman in that industry?
No. There were other women in it. I had really wanted to be a doctor, but in the 1930s, it wasn't considered proper for a woman to be a doctor, including my father, who was very opposed to it. So I found another career.
I'm sorry, do you think you would have made a good doctor?
can't tell. I don't have a crystal ball.
No, you.
But I probably would have gone into research.
Yeah, that's amazing. You said that happened to you, I guess, at the end of the 1930s when my wife went into college and told her parents she wanted to be a doctor. They said, well, what about a nurse? I don't think that it hasn't gone away too much for some reason for some people, the idea that women shouldn't do that, but obviously they can and should. So you had you married two different men, loved two men, raised a family, worked a full career, retired at a good age, and then went on to spend 35 years right to this day still trying to, hold up the JDRF, which is really amazing. Do you have any idea how much money you've raised over the years for them?
Oh, no idea.
No.
But I never stop.
Just keep going. How do you do that? How do you talk to people about diabetes?
I tell them it's a terrible disease and the biggest robber of childhood I can imagine. Mm-hmm. Because I know most of the children that I raised and that I know had very carefree childhoods who thought about shots and tests and blood sugars. Yeah. But then there came my grandchildren who had to cope with this. Yeah. And Gus, since he was 3 years old.
And Gus needed a kidney, and you're saying that was from diabetes. How old was he about when that happened? Do you remember?
I think he might have been in his 20s.
Okay. Do you know much about how your grandchildren manage their diabetes and how's it changed over the years for them?
Oh, it's changed completely. I think in the beginning you did urine tests to figure how much insulin you needed. And since then, there have been tremendous advances.
Yeah, there really are. My daughter's wearing an insulin pump right now and a glucose monitor, right?
They all do.
Yeah. And Sarah and Gus wear all that stuff now too?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's excellent.
And Gus's biggest problem from the diabetes is his eyesight. He's legally blind.
I'm sorry.
And we have gotten him a diabetic dog who lets him know when his blood sugars are up or down. And that's a tremendous help because it's hard for him to read a small sensor.
Yeah. I think about that. When I think about it, I'm only 48. By the way, thank you. You make me feel young today. I don't get that feeling too often, but
you're a baby.
I'm now feeling like I've only lived like 2 of my 4 lives, so I'm doing okay. But at night when I go in to help my daughter, in the last 5 or so years, I need glasses now to look at the meter. And it made me right away think of all the people who need glasses, who are by themselves and wake up in the middle of the night, need to look at these things and can't see them. Is Gus married or is he alone? What's his situation?
No, he's married and he has a little girl who's fine.
Good. That's amazing. Do you think they worry about his daughter perhaps getting diabetes one day? Do you ever talk about that?
Well, of course. And Sarah has 2 little girls. So I have 3 great-grandchildren that I keep hoping will avoid type 1 diabetes.
Yeah. How is your health in general? I know your age, but have you been through things in your life that you've battled past?
Oh, sure. Hasn't everybody?
Yeah, my list is starting to build up. No, but it's just interesting. Like I kind of imagine that if somebody sees you at 100, they might think you were just, you were so lucky, you just didn't get sick, nothing ever happened. But you've had surgeries and gone through.
I've had, and I think I can't go back to the doctor right now with this being isolated.
Yeah.
But I have battled breast cancer, and I'm taking a pill, letrozole, that at last examination has shrunk. And I'm just hoping it continues to shrink.
Yeah. No, that's how. So, have you not had breast cancer for long? When were you diagnosed with that?
Uh, just 2 or 3 years ago.
No kidding. And you're
And
using medication to treat it right now.
I take pills, letrozole,
Yeah. My goodness.
and I've also had surgery for a hernia. That the colon came through and was very painful. And I guess I had all the childhood things.
Right. How much? Can I ask you how much activity you get in the course of a day? What do you do to stay? I don't know, mobile. Like my mom, who I tease all the time about being old, is 76, and now I feel like I owe her an apology. But she, I know what she does to stay, active. What do you do?
Well, for years I did Tai Chi. And then I had a very bad fall, and I have to use a walker.
Okay.
I'm not as steady as I used to be, and I try to keep active.
Yeah.
But it's limited.
Right. Well,
because I use this walker that I hate.
I can't imagine you like it. No, but I guess it helps you. So in the end,
yeah. Well, I had a very bad fall last year. I was 99 when I had this bad fall, and I haven't been as mobile since.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear.
But I work on the computer and I read a lot and I try to stay active.
Do you watch Netflix? Do you have a favorite show?
Just the news in the evening.
News, yeah.
And then I find that depressing until I can't listen anymore.
I hear you. Can I ask you how, because you have a lot of, historical knowledge. You saw a couple of pandemics throughout the years. I
was born after the end of the last pandemic.
No kidding.
On the Spanish flu, which was, I guess, 1917, 18, 19. It was, but then I was born in 1920.
20. I'm trying to think. When was Legionnaires in Philly?
Oh, it was a few years back.
Yeah, I bet you.
It started on a cruise ship, I think, and they contributed it to air conditioning vents
in a hotel in Philadelphia, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder when that was. I'm gonna find out. Hold on one second. 1976.
Okay.
Wow. 86, 96, 2016. Wow, that was a long time ago. Okay. And so how are you finding this idea of, what's the most limiting aspect for you being an older person? Is it not being able to go to the doctor? Is it the idea of, you can't really be in contact with people? How's it affect?
Oh, I'm in contact with people all the time. We've done through email, through the telephone. No, and on my birthday, we had a Zoom of about 100 people.
That's amazing. And I know we won't meet her, but you have a health worker who lives with you. Is she there 24/7 with you?
Yes.
That's nice.
She doesn't leave. She was here when we began to hear how bad it was, and she's been here ever since. Okay. Her husband takes care of their high school daughter. Mm-hmm. They're isolated, and he comes over and brings things, and they wave through the window, but they do not see each other.
Goodness. And
they see each other. They do not have any personal contact.
Right. And is that to keep you safe?
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's very lovely of them to do.
Oh, she is a wonderful person. I don't know why she walked out.
Oh, yeah, we tried to get her to stay on the camera in the beginning. She said, "This isn't for me." Well, that's really amazing. How long has she been with you?
since the beginning of March.
No kidding. That's really wonderful of her. That's lovely. And so you're not able to go to your doctors right now. What do you think about, I have to ask you, because you're in Atlanta and Georgia's talking about opening up restrictions.
Oh, they are. They're opening up all kinds of things. I think our governor is completely stupid.
Shirley, I was wondering what you were going to say, but I appreciate you being honest.
I'm very honest.
Yeah.
I think he's an idiot. And I think we're going to have an upswing of this stupid virus.
Yeah. I don't see how.
By opening up nail salons, tattoo parlors. Can you think of anything worse?
No. I'm trying to understand why those are the first things that we're getting to. I guess I know. You know what I mean?
I think he probably owns a strip mall that has them on it. I think he's thinking of money more important than health.
Yeah, it might be. I think you're right. I think, it's a short. Listen, we obviously have to get the economy going at some point. Eventually we'll cause such a problem financially. We'll kill people in a different way. But in the moment, it is really difficult not to feel like that. Like you're putting, money in front of health. I just pulled up your type 1 diabetes fundraiser that you have set up for your birthday. And my goodness, you're up to $29,000.
Okay, and let's give them the link.
The link? Well, the link's it's long, right? So what I'll do...
Not too long.
You don't think so? Hold on, what is it?
I can tell it to you in a few seconds.
No, maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. Go ahead.
www.jdrf.org/Shirley B100.
Shirley B100. So www.jdrf.org/go/Shirley B100.
Right.
I did it. Okay, so I'm going to put that. Shirley, you don't need to know about this, but when I post your video and your audio, I'll put that link right where people can click on it. And I hope the people from the podcast, Shirley's trying to get to $35,000. And she's a little over 29,000. So if anybody can kick in, that would be really, really nice.
Okay, and I think they do the S in Shirley capital.
Okay.
And the capital B, the rest in lowercase.
All right, don't worry. I'll make sure I have it right when I share it, and people can click on it. All right, listen, I got to talk to you a little more about the virus. So is it, when you said you're listening to the news, so a number of weeks ago when it's all becoming kind of obvious what's happening, how do you prepare to protect yourself immediately?
To stay home. To stay isolated.
Yeah. There's nothing more to it, right? Just keep to yourself for a little while and let people pass, let medicines.
That not to have any contact.
Yeah.
And God bless Valencia. She was here listening to the news with me because I had a group of caretakers that took turns because my sons all thought I should never be left alone.
Right.
After that bad fall I had.
Of course.
And I said, I think we should be isolated. And she said, I think so too. Nice. And we agreed we'd stay together. And she talked to her husband, and they agreed too. He'd stay isolated with their daughter, mm-hmm. and she'd stay isolated with me.
It makes sense. My family has been, we've been all together in this house for, my gosh, it's going to be 2 months in a couple of weeks. So we're over 6 weeks already. And
now tell me what your family consists of.
Well, I've been married to my wife, Kelly, since 1996. And we have 2 children. My son is 20 years old. His name's Cole. He's a college student, but they sent him home, obviously. So he's finishing up his sophomore year this week online. And my daughter's also a sophomore, but in high school. So she's 15. And she's the one who has type 1 diabetes. She was diagnosed when she was 2 years old.
Did anyone else in your family have type 1?
So Shirley, I'm adopted, so I don't have any history beyond me on my bloodline, but on my wife's side of the family, there is a fair amount of other autoimmune issues, but not type 1 diabetes. Do you see that in your family? Do you see other autoimmune stuff like hypothyroidism or celiac?
Uh, yes. And strangely enough, it's one of my grandsons of my step family
Mhm.
that has celiacs. So autoimmune diseases are all around.
Yeah. No, they're more prevalent, it seems to me, over the last couple of decades than they have been prior. Or maybe there were just things that we didn't know about. I'm not sure.
Well, I think there's two reasons for that. One is climate change and a lot of pollutants in the air,
Mhm.
and also better testing
Yeah.
and diagnosing.
Right. No, yeah, I think so too. It's hard to argue with. I mean, you're seeing it over the last couple of weeks, right? We're all in our homes, so we're not driving our cars and factories aren't running. And even my son, who doesn't pay attention to stuff like this at all, said to me the other day, have you noticed that the air feels fresher? It's just he's like it's almost neutral. Like there's no odor to it whatsoever. And you're getting those reports from all over the country that smog and pollution are lifting and all these things are. And look how quickly they changed, in a few weeks.
That we learn to stop factories.
There's got to be a way to do things that we have to do that are better, that it is a more safe way for everyone, because, it's not going to
Right.
matter how cheaply we can make a cell phone if we're all hiding in our house for the rest of our lives, right? Shirley, did I lose you for a second?
No, I'm right here.
Oh,
Wondering.
okay. No, your audio just went away for 1 second. That's all. I just couldn't hear you for a second. That's all.
Want to know what all I've done with JDRF?
I do. Yeah. I'd love to know. I think what's happening though is Valencia's vacuuming, if I can hear it right, and your microphone is hearing the vacuum instead of your voice, which is a weird thing to say.
I don't hear the vacuum.
No?
No.
You're back now. You're nice and clear. But yes, tell me over the years, what have you done for the JDRF?
Well, I used to work in the office till we got a paid staff. And I also started, I figured that education was the most important thing, and children should know and understand what's happening to them.
Yeah.
So I started a children's educational program, and we called it Sugar Show, where kids learn. We did all kinds of things that asking about type 1 diabetes so children could understand. And now I think everyone understands how important education is.
Yeah.
And we have the Type 1 Nation Summit.
Mm-hmm.
That's education for everybody, for the children, for parents, for caregivers, for teachers. Everyone needs to understand it.
Do you know that I just gave a talk in Atlanta at your Type 1 Diabetes Nation Summit?
That's what I understand.
Yeah, I come to the summits. I've done about 8 or 9 of them in the last year or so. And I come and I explain how we use insulin. It seems overly simple, but we talk about how we use insulin to stop spikes and to stop low blood sugars so that you can have more stability and spend less time thinking about your blood sugar. And I love those events. Those Type 1 Nation events are wonderful. They bring in all kinds
I think they're great. I'm sorry I didn't know about you. I'd have been in your talk and to listen to you.
Were you there that day?
Probably. I don't miss many things.
I was excellent. You really missed it.
I'm positive.
Hopefully I can come back when all of this, becomes less common and do it again. I would love to meet you in person. That would be wonderful. So you worked so you were a volunteer until they got an office staff. You helped build programs. I guess you make phone calls for donations and all that stuff. Have you
Oh, yes. And I also started a grandparents group. We call it Grandparents Care.
That's lovely. I have a lot of, so I don't know how much you understand about what I do, but usually I don't record video. I just record audio, and it's available for people to listen to through a podcast, and it's incredibly popular. And
Now, what is your podcast?
it's called the Juicebox Podcast. So I interview people who have type 1 diabetes, are the parents of type 1s, a lot of CEOs of companies that do things around diabetes. And we just talk either conversationally like this, hearing people's stories. Sometimes we talk about real management stuff, the way to use insulin. We talk about technology and where it's going. It's been, the podcast it's 6 years old. There's 330 episodes of this.
Now, tell me, what's the name of it? Juicebox?
Yeah, it's called the Juicebox Podcast because, people use juice boxes to bring their blood sugars up. So,
I know.
yeah. So, that's what it's called. And I've had it for a long time. I started to write about diabetes in 2007. And then in 2014, I started thinking about making this into an audio show. It took me about 6 months to figure out all the technical stuff. And then I started the show in January of 2015.
Now, if I want to tune into it, what do I do?
Well, you could, do you have an iPhone? Do you have a phone?
Yeah.
Yep. There's if you have an iPhone, there's an app on the iPhone where you can listen.
And is it called Juicebox?
It's called Juicebox Podcast. I will send you a link so you can, Valencia can help you get on it.
Good.
Okay. So you'll at least be able to listen to yourself.
And then I'll be appalled.
No. Everyone thinks they're not going to be good, and then everyone ends up doing a wonderful job. It's very interesting. No one thinks they have anything interesting to say, but they always do. I have to ask you a little bit about the cost of diabetes now versus before. And I guess just the cost of things in general and how you've seen them change over your life. Do you remember things like what you paid for your house, your first home, and things like that?
Oh, I certainly do.
I'd love
And
to.
it's gone up amazingly.
A little bit, right?
Yeah.
What did you pay for your first home?
My first home or this home?
Well, do you remember your very first home when you got married? What'd
Oh,
you pay?
certainly. Well, we rented in an apartment.
Right.
But then the first house we bought was $23,000.
No kidding. Isn't that something? And now real estate in Atlanta is incredibly expensive. I wonder what that house is worth now.
Oh, I probably way up. And the house I live in now, and I'm still in my own house, I bought in 1964.
Okay.
So I have been here quite a while.
What did you pay for that?
Can you hear me?
I can. I'm sorry. I was wondering what you paid for this house that you're in now.
$50,000.
$50,000. Is it paid off? It's all yours, I guess.
Oh, sure.
That's wonderful.
We paid that off ages ago, and I have been offered amazing amounts of money for it, but I have no intention of selling it and moving. I would hate to live in one of those retirement places,
right,
and be with old people. I have neighbors, I have children that have moved in, and I enjoy children.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's any reason for you to go, especially if you're able and you have good help. I listen, I think for people who have to go to a home, if they have to, they have to. But your situation it's too
I love my house,
yeah,
and I have very good health.
Yeah. Good for you. That's why. I mean, you've lived in that house over 50 years. Is that right?
Oh, 50. Where are we now? In 20. So 56 years.
No kidding. That's amazing. You bought that house 8 years before I was born. And I've owned this house for 20 years. So That's pretty great. It really is an exception. Do you ever think about how kind of exceptional it is for you to be very independent at your age and doing all that? It really is uncommon, isn't it?
Well, I don't know anyone my age. All my friends have died.
What is that like? Is it hard to see people go over and over, or do you?
Of course it is.
Yeah,
How can it ever be nice to see a dear friend go?
right. No, I just wondered if it got easier over the years, if you came to expect it, but I don't know.
No, it's never easy.
Do you have an idea of how old you think you're going to be? Like, do you ever wonder about that?
Well, I'll tell you a little story.
Please.
On my 99th birthday, one of my sons gave a party, and one of my grandsons, Stanley, in fact, Bruce's youngest son, called me and said he was sorry he couldn't be there. He was too busy. He's been made the head of a history department at Arizona State. And he had so much to do in curriculum and lectures, and he didn't have time. But he said he'll probably have some time in about 10 years so he'll promise he'll give me he'll take care of my 110th birthday party. I don't have to worry about it. So I'll be around for Stanley to do my 110th birthday party.
I imagine you will be, by the way. You really do. That's something else. I was just thinking, your story was delightful, and the thought went out of my head. When you think back on your life, if you were to share something with someone, a regret or something you've learned that you think is really important to know, do you have a nugget like that, like something you'd want people to know about living?
All right, I have been asked, what do I think is the greatest advance I've seen in my lifetime? Number one, I'd say dryers. I hated going outside hanging up clothes to dry. And the second thing I think is the most important, most rewarding advance are cell phones. When my kids were teenagers, we didn't have cell phones.
Right.
And I used to worry about them till they got home, till I heard that door open.
Right.
And especially after they started to drive. And it's so good now. If you have a teenager out in the car, you can call and ask where they are and when they're coming home.
So convenience. I have to tell you, Shirley, you don't know this about me, but a while ago now, I think it's been more than 7 years, I wrote a book, and the title of the book is Life is Short, Laundry is Eternal. Because I've been a stay-at-home dad for over 20 years, and the only thing I hate about it is doing the laundry. But I've never had to hang clothes up to dry them. I guess if I had that, I'd really hate it.
Well, we got a washing machine, but then I had to take the clothes outside to dry them.
Yeah. You've seen refrigerators that you had ice.
Oh, I remember the Iceman coming with the ice.
That's something. My grandmother used to talk about that, about a block of ice that went in the bottom of the refrigerator to keep the food cold, and the man would come every so often with a new block of ice.
And I can remember, though, wonderful fresh vegetables. We used to have a farmer that came with his, I guess it was a horse and buggy, and he brought vegetables to us every day that he picked in the morning, and Mama would go out and pick the ones we'd have for dinner.
Yeah.
And we had really fresh nothing tastes as good as it used to.
Even stuff you're not supposed to eat, like cereal in a box. I don't know what happened, but when they stopped using sugar, it doesn't work right anymore. Like that's interesting. I said this is not the same thing, because you said Doritos. or you said vegetables, but I said to my wife the other night, Doritos don't taste the way they did when we were kids, and I don't eat them because of that. And it is interesting how the production of food changes the flavor, but we don't notice because it happens sort of so slowly, and we don't have people like you who remember it from a different time. That's interesting. That is really interesting.
I remember that butter tasted so much better.
Mhm.
We got butter from a farmer who churned it, and we never got sticks. We got a clump. And then buttermilk was just the milk left after the butter formed. It didn't taste like that sour stuff they call buttermilk today.
Right.
It was all delicious.
Yeah, no kidding. And fresh and just organic. There was not much to it other than what it was. I just realized I was very close with my grandmother growing up. And she passed away when I was 16 and she was 72 then. So I just did the math while you were talking about butter. So she'd be 104 today. And I can remember so vividly that she got a microwave when microwaves came out. But she was so scared of it, she'd only ever heat water up in it. She would never do anything else with it. She wouldn't cook with it. And I'm wondering, did that seem very foreign to you when those came out?
I think I have a microwave. I use it. I have used it. I think it ruins food. And more, I would much rather use a real oven because I think it ruins the taste of food.
Right. What is your favorite meal? What do you enjoy eating still?
Lamb chops.
Oh. How do you like them made?
I love them with mint.
The little mint. No, you've been down south for a while, I guess, huh?
Yeah. Since I was 3 years old.
Except for college, and then you came back right away again.
Yeah.
Where did you meet your first husband?
Right here in Atlanta. He was from New York, got a job in Atlanta, and he was great.
Yeah, that's interesting.
He was a wonderful guy, and we wrote all during the war. He was overseas. We wrote every day. I have every letter he ever wrote in a cedar chest downstairs. And he only came home on R&R. It's near the end of the war, and we got married, and he went back overseas again.
Okay.
So
you almost made me cry when you said you have all the letters. Just so you know, I got all emotional when you said that. That's so wonderful. Do you ever go back and look at them?
I cry.
Yeah, I would too. I have to tell you.
Yeah, they make me cry.
Yeah.
And I can't. I keep saying I'm going to go through them all, but I just can't.
Do your children know that they exist?
Oh, yes.
Good. Oh, that's lovely. That really is something else. You must have just seen so many strange things. I mean, honestly, like technology.
I remember the first time I heard a radio. My father brought one home, and we all sat down on the couch, and he turned it on, and lo and behold, Lowell Thomas came out of the box. I remember that distinctly.
The only story I have like that is that my father brought a VCR home one day, and then we went to a local pharmacy that rented movies in the back, and they had like 20 different movies on those videotapes, and we felt like we were wealthy because no one had them at that point. And I don't know what made my dad do that because we grew up so poor. I don't know what made him spend a bunch of money on something like that. But it was crazy that was that. And now, now you watch movies on your phone or on your computer. It's just so simple. But I was going to say is that you lived through so many big leaps in technology, and now the technology that we use every day, it doesn't grow as fast anymore. It's gotten kind of...
Something popped up on the screen.
Right.
Called Prox Call. I don't know what that is.
That's nothing about this. You'll be okay. You can just close that when you have a chance. But that's amazing. It's just amazing all the things that you've seen. And I mean, even just air travel. Did you do a lot of flying as a younger
Oh,
person?
yes, I love flying.
Yeah. Where are some places you've been?
Lots of places. I have my children all wear like buttercups that you blow, dandelions all over. So I have one son in Oregon. I have one son in Vermont and another son in Ohio.
Oh my. It's hard. My wife and I talk about that a lot. We're trying to imagine like letting the kids settle somewhere and then trying to find a central place where we can be reasonably close to them. But I
went around to all mine.
Yeah.
Because then if I go to them, I can see all the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, whereas if they came here, just one came, but now that's what happens.
Right.
And I've been to a lot of countries in Europe. I have been to Israel. Gone on cruises in the Caribbean.
You've been around.
Been quite a few places.
Yeah.
But I always feel good when I come back to Atlanta.
Right. No, it's a lovely place. I've been to Atlanta a number of times, not just to speak, but my son used to go there a lot to play baseball, and I would go with him. But it's so hot there in the summertime. Can you even go outside in the heat of the summer? How do you handle that?
I love it.
Do you? You would laugh at me when I'm in Atlanta then. We were at a baseball field one day, and my son played 2 games. So it was the second game, and I had been outside all day. And I found a telephone pole, and I stood next to it. And as the sun moved, I just kept shimmying around the telephone pole, trying to stay in the little shadow that it was making. I thought that sun was going to fry me. I really did. But
I can remember before we had air conditioning.
Oh my.
And it's just fine with me.
Yeah, I guess your body really does become accustomed to it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Good for you. Oh, I've kept you very long. I did not mean to keep you this long. I'm so sorry. Are you okay for time?
Oh, I'm fine. I have nowhere to go.
So then I have nowhere to go. None of us do, right? I don't have anywhere to go either. God, speaking of time, maybe this won't resonate with you, but let me know if it does. As I've gotten older, in the beginning when I was younger, the days felt like they took forever. And
now they whiz by.
Now they feel like they go by much more quickly. And I've lost track of the idea of a day. Weeks seem to go by quickly. Sometimes I watch my feet go on the floor in the morning and I just think, wow, I'm on a hamster wheel here. It just keeps happening over and over again. Does that feeling ever go away where you're cognizant of time?
Time goes by faster and faster every day.
Do you ever find yourself not worrying about it, or is it still something you think about?
I can't think about it. I can't worry about it. It keeps whizzing by.
Yeah. I don't worry. I don't worry about it. I'm aware of it, I guess.
Right.
I don't know if that means...
You're aware that, and time goes faster and faster. And it used to go real slow when you were young.
Yeah. Because you're busy, you think, or because you're not aware of an end? You know what
I can't give you the reason.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think about it a lot, and I just wondered if it was something that maybe one day I would just be alive for so long that I'd stop noticing it. Because there's other things, you know what I mean, that I don't notice anymore. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like that movie Groundhog Day. You ever see that one with Bill?
Oh, sure.
Oh my gosh. What do you when you do get out, when all, like, what's the first thing you're going to go do when you're able to get out of your house again for enjoyment?
I guess just ride around Atlanta.
See everything again.
Maybe
right?
go see my, I love my step grandchildren. It would be great to go see them.
Feel like you're not going to get sick for being there and everything. Have you and Valencia gone for a ride? Have you broken out and just?
No, the
No.
most I've done is on my birthday. I went to the end of my driveway, and they had a big parade
Oh,
led by fire engines and 20 cars,
no,
all honking. It was wild.
that's lovely. Did you guys get some video of it? Do you have a little video?
Yeah.
Do you? Oh, that's wonderful. That's a very nice memory to have. So your town got together and did that?
My stepchildren did that.
Got that all set up for you. That's very nice. That's lovely.
And they had great big, they did it in the middle of the night, a great big signs all across my front yard that said, "Happy 100th birthday, Grandma Shirley."
Isn't that nice? Listen, I have to say, when I was looking at your JDRF page, the people making large donations on your behalf. You must have a lot of good friends that know how hard you've worked on this, because there are 5,000, 2,000. There are big donations here.
Well, I don't let up.
Yeah, right.
I'm wanting to raise money for JDRF and find a cure.
Yeah. Well, I hope we can. I want to thank you for this talk. This was really lovely. I appreciate the time that you
I
spent.
think you're a very interesting man.
Thank you.
What is your name again?
Scott.
Scott.
Yep.
And you do the Juicebox Podcast.
That's 100% right. Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to make sure you have a link to this so that you can hear it and see it if you want to.
Oh, I do.
And and it was nice of you to say interesting. I would have liked if you said handsome, but
Oh. Yeah, you're handsome too and interesting.
thank you, and humble too, I would say.
Well, I think you're out there pushing for a cure too for type 1.
I'll tell you, Shirley, what I love most about the JDRF is how hard they work in Washington for people with type 1 diabetes, their rights. That stuff that they do is incredibly important. I am incredibly hopeful about a cure, but I also know that day-to-day advancements that have been made in pumping and glucose monitors they make people's lives better today for diabetes.
And I also didn't mention that I work with the advocacy committee.
You do with them as well. Have you ever been up to that big thing in Washington that they do, the Children's Congress?
No, I never went to that, but I have been to Washington.
On behalf of the JDRF?
Well, I'm always on behalf of the JDRF.
That's nice. So you'll tell anybody who sits still long enough about diabetes and the need for this support, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's just very kind of you to spend your time that way. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody else does too. I'm going to say thank you and goodbye, but this has been really genuinely a nice way to spend my Friday afternoon. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I hope I get to talk with you again.
That would be nice. We'll do it. We'll definitely do it on your 110th birthday for sure. But
Okay.
but no, the next time you have something to share, you let me know. I would love to do this again.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The Juicebox Podcast is available everywhere that podcasts are. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, anywhere you can think of. And if you don't have one of those free apps, check it out at juiceboxpodcast.com. It's even available on Google Play, Google Podcasts. It's there for everybody. It is 100% free. There are over 300 episodes. The podcast has 1.6 million downloads and counting, and has been here and available to you for over 5 years. I hope you enjoyed this and that you'll check out the show.